opponents will indict me. You have to give the president full and total immunity. And you know, I liken it to a little bit, police, you have to give them back their authority and their power because our country is trying. And when you do that, you're going to have a rogue cop, you're going to have a bad apple somewhere along the line. Very, very few, surprisingly few, but you're going to have some. And what they're doing is they're trying to protect so much against that, and crime is rampant all over the place. And, you know, the police are incredible, and the firemen, everyone else, but they're incredible. These are incredible people, and they want to do their job, and they're not allowed to do it. Just like the Border Patrol wants to do their job. They're not allowed. They're under orders. You'll lose your house. You'll lose everything you have. You'll lose your family, your wife, family, husband, family. You're going to lose everything you can do it if you act when they see people walking out of the stores carrying televisions. Don't do it, don't touch it, don't do anything. We have to go back to being a country of law and order. And you will have, very seldom, but you will have the rogue, we call it the rogue cop, the bad apple, and perhaps you'll have that also with president. But there's nothing you can do about that. You're going to have to give the president, you're going to have to allow a president, any president, to have immunity so that that president can act and do what he feels and what his group of advisors feel is the absolute right thing. Otherwise, you're going to have presidents that are totally impotent, and we've had enough of them already. So having immunity is so important, and I hope the Supreme Court has the courage to do that, because otherwise you're just not going to be in a very strong position very long. It'll totally change our country, in my opinion. That's how bad it would be. Upon taking office, I will terminate every open border policy that Biden and the Biden administration put on and begin the largest deportation operation in American history. To stop the deadly drugs that are pouring into our country, poisoning our people, I will deploy the U.S. Navy. We are going to oppose, and we had this, you know, we were at a 38-year low for drugs coming in too, not just people coming in for drugs. And now we're 9 times more. Drugs are just pouring in. We fought that hard. We spent millions of dollars on equipment that could detect. You know what the best detection though is? A certain type of German Shepherd. You can spend millions of dollars on drug detecting equipment, and it's not as good as a great certain type of German Shepherd, like they're flawless. Can you imagine dogs? We all love dogs, right? But the Navy's going to impose a full fentanyl blockade on the waters of our region because it comes from every different way. And I had to deal with President Xi of China. And when the election turned out, the way it turned out, we got more votes than any sitting president in history, and we lost by a whisker. Bullshit. You know, we got more votes. We got more votes, Henry, than any president in the history of our country. Any president, and bad things happen. But President Xi and I had an agreement. He was going to give the maximum penalty to anybody making fentanyl in China and sending it over here. That means the death penalty, because they have the death penalty. That's why they don't have any drug problems. In China, they have the death penalty. Singapore, other places. Where you have the death penalty, you have no drug problem. It's a very simple thing. So I don't know that our country is ready for it, but each drug dealer kills on average 500 people during his or her lifetime. And I know what it is because I have so many friends. And even if you lose somebody without it, just lose somebody. We had it this last week. I lost my mother-in-law, and she passed away, recently passed away. It's a very hard thing to take. But think of what happens when you lose a child, or anybody to fentanyl. It's a horrible thing. And we had it just about set, and when it was going to go into existence, and then when these guys came, they didn't care about that. They didn't know about it, they didn't want to bother with it. That would have been one of the most important things we did. I'll get it done again. President Xi will do it again, I guarantee you. The drug cartels are winning. They say 91,000, that's not 91,000. 300,000 people a year, I believe, are lost to drugs pouring into our country. That's worse than a war, okay? It's worse than a war. So we have a war going on. And I would use Title 42, which I had, to fact, the judge on that case was fantastic. He said to them, they wanted to terminate it early. The judge wouldn't let him do it. He said, no, wait a minute, do you know what's going to happen to our country if we do that? Title 42. And he said, no, but it expires. You can wait. But if you don't extend it, it would be terrible. But I'm not going to give you the right to terminate it. He was fantastic, actually. He understood. But Title 42 to end the child trafficking crisis by returning all trafficked children to their families and their home countries immediately. Nikki Haley will never secure the border or stop the fentanyl that is killing thousands and thousands of New Hampshire citizens. You know, I took tours with your police force and your fire force. And a big part of what they do in New Hampshire, I don't know what it is with New Hampshire, but you probably have per capita the worst drug situation in the entire country. Why don't you try getting a new governor to go and help? But you have the worst, I believe it's the worst per capita, I believe it's the worst, and it's not even close. But I went around with the firemen, the job they do, policemen, the job of keeping people alive. But sometimes I have to do it 4 or 5 times with the same person, and oftentimes that person doesn't make it eventually. Nikki Haley opposed my border wall very strongly. She condemned my strong border policies, and they really worked. They really worked. When I put in policies, I didn't want people coming in from countries that hate us. I wanted to talk about it so badly during that 4-year period. 2.5, 3 years went up. I said, I want to talk, but I don't want to mention it because if I mention it, the next day you'll have a problem with SAC. But we went, now I can talk about it with great pride. We went 4 years without any terrorist problem. Because we kept it up. We kept it up. And remember, Iran was broke under the Trump administration. Iran was broke. I said to China, if you buy 1 barrel of oil from Iran, you're not going to do any business in the U.S. I'm going to put 100% tariff on everything you have. They said, like we said, we're not going to buy any oil. But I did that with many countries, and they were absolutely broke. If you remember back, you go back 3.5 years ago, you will see that there were reports, actually, even from the fake news, that Hamas, Hezbollah, they didn't have any money because Iran had no money to give them. They wanted to survive. And I didn't want to be better. I just didn't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I said, you know, we're going to make a great deal. Everybody's going to be happy. You're going to be rich as hell again. Everything's going to be great. But you cannot have a nuclear weapon. Now they're 31 days away from having a nuclear weapon. These numbskulls have done nothing. It would have been such an easy deal. They wanted to make a deal. And then because of the results of the election, they said, let's wait it out. Nobody ever contacted them. They're going to have a nuclear weapon in 31 days. The likes of which, the power of nuclear weaponry is not describable. Actually, it's not describable. And that's where we are right now. This country has regressed to a point that it's so embarrassing even to talk about when you look at what's happened. Just 3 years, a little more than 3 years, what's happened to our country is so sad to see. Nikki stabbed the Republican Party in the back by siding with Barack Hussein Obama against the Trump travel ban, which kept us safe. That travel ban was a gift from God. It kept us safe as a country. We didn't have the problems that other countries had. Biden and his thugs are desperate to stop us because they know that we are the only ones who can stop them. We're the only ones who can stop them. You know, this is the greatest movement in the history of the United States. Never been. In an interview yesterday, a very sad interview actually, Attorney General Merrick Garland, head of crooked Joe Biden's Department of Justice, actually stated that he wanted to speed up the so-called election integrity witch hunt against President Trump. And I say, if you wanted to do that, why didn't they file the lawsuit 3 years earlier? Because they wanted to have it right smack in the middle of the election. You know what?